Excellent. Thank you, Alan. So excited to have you all here tonight. As Magdalena mentioned, the programming is really around nourishing the mind and the body and the spirit, and so we try to bring in a lot of different pieces to do that. We're so excited about tonight. I'm going to give you a sense of flow, and then I'll bring Tasha and Schuyler up here. We're going to start with some movement by Tasha Blank, who is the founder of the Get Down, an amazing DJ. I'm so happy to have her in the space. And then a talk and a discussion by Schuyler, who's a futurist. She works in a lot of companies and has a lot to say really around the feminine in the workplace. And again, so honored to have you here. Then we'll have some more movement by Tasha and then a performance by Hale. So it's a really beautiful evening of some powerhouse women. So really grateful that you guys are all here to experience it with us. I'm going to bring you up now, Tasha. And we really encourage you to go to the bar and enjoy some of the drinks and food we have here as well.
Thank you, guys. Schuyler, do you want to introduce what's happening?
Yeah. Hi. So this has already been a magical evening, and I find that when you invoke the feminine, you usually get magic and or chaos. So we've had a little bit of that already. Yeah, and so I'm going to say what's going on? Yes. Ooh. I'm just going to say a couple words about why we're here, and then I'm going to hand over to Tasha. And I also wanted to introduce Daniela Plattner, who many of you already know, but Daniela may be stepping in here and there to help us facilitate this evening. I have made a commitment to myself and to my partners in crime tonight to create a really deeply authentic experience, and also a shared experience, because that's what the feminine is about. One of my teachers on the subject said, the great gift of the feminine is belonging. And I think of that a lot. I think that's very beautiful, but just creating spaces where everybody belongs. So that's my goal tonight. We're kind of spread out, which is going to be a bit more challenging in terms of creating coherence, but Tasha's confident she can bring us together. So why are we here? Well, each of you probably has your own reason, and throughout the course of the evening, I welcome and encourage, we'll have discussion, and I'd love to hear why you're here and what your experience of the feminine is. But I can tell you a few things about why I'm here. Maybe not coincidentally, does anyone know that tonight is, or by some counts, today or tomorrow starts Navaratri, which is the 9-day festival of the goddess in India, which is a really, really beautiful time. For me, India, maybe the spiritual home of the planet. And it's an ancient festival based on astrological conditions that I don't understand. Maybe some of you do, but there is some cosmic significance to this moment in time, this new moon, this first day of Navaratri, dedicated to Durga, and we're here. And it was almost sort of accidental that we all kind of came together tonight, or not. And I also just want to say that I feel a great sense of responsibility when I'm talking about or sharing an experience of the feminine. And I think that can be overlooked sometimes, and I just want to speak it, because we're dealing right now on this planet with some very deep wounds. Do you feel that? They're surfacing, right? In order to be healed. And the feminine is one of these wounds. So as nice as it is, it's funny, there's a rational experience. You know, there's kind of an intellectual experience, like I can talk about what the feminine is and why it's important and what integration or balance looks like. And then I can have a deep embodied felt experience of these energies that we're talking about. And that's a little bit, that's where we need to go, and that's a scarier place to be. Yeah, because when we drop into the body, we feel emotions. And we also touch into more of our collective stuff. I hesitate because I don't want to start out on a negative note, but I feel like it has to be named that there's also, there's a lot of pain related to the suppression of the feminine for such a long time. And not just in women, in men too. Bell Hooks says the greatest, the ones who have suffered most from the patriarchy are men. So I'm so glad to see the men in the room. This is not about men or women. It's not that, I think all of us are probably evolved enough and developed enough to know that we're not talking about gender here. We all have masculine and feminine qualities and resources within us, and that dance is what makes us beautifully human. But I just feel called to bring into the space the importance of the work that we're doing here tonight, that it can be so beautiful and it's going to be a lot of fun, and we have some very cool things to do together. And this is hugely important work that we're doing, whether you knew it or not when you stepped out and you came here tonight, especially in this city. New York City, for me, one of the most masculine places on the planet, is it not? It is erect, this city. Constantly erect. Yeah, it's like those warnings on the pharmaceutical ads. It's like, never mind. But it is, it's very vertical, it's very, I mean, we all know it's a staccato energy, it's a very masculine place on the planet. And places have qualities. I mean, Hawaii is a beautifully feminine place. And so we're affected, we are just living without doing anything, just because we're here. When we wake up in the morning, we are working within a hyper-masculine structure. Yeah. So, and if you work in the corporate world, ×2. Or if you work in the medical profession, not the Ayurvedic well-being, wellness side of the medical profession, but if you're in academia, like pretty much most industries, technology. So whatever your job is or however you spend your day, you're operating in a predominantly masculine paradigm already. So, so for us to be gathered here in this feminine space, this integrated space, frankly, with the intentions that were so beautifully set already, thank you, and with the things that we have lined up for us all to do tonight, I think that we're actually doing the good work here. So pat yourself on the back, or maybe something warmer, maybe like a little hug, squeeze, some kind of feminine holding, and thank you so much for being here to do this tonight. Tasha, what are we gonna do?
You're invited to close your eyes. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Come on in. Close your eyes. And if you notice that your eyes are still open, then close them. It's amazing, right? Our minds just love to be on. And they love to be on the lookout, and they love to be looking outward, and they love to be taking in information and strategizing and coming up with plans and interpreting and creating meaning and telling stories and coming up with plan B and C and D, especially in this city. And what a gift to be able to, in the middle of this city, take a moment to come back inside and feel what it is to be in a human body that is already breathing. What it is to be in a human body that's already been thinking. What it is to be in a human body with a heart that is already beating. With muscles that are already sending electricity back and forth without you ever having to think about it. What it is to be in a human body with cells that perform a very large number of functions without us ever having to tell them what to do. And very gently just start with your eyes closed to bounce, letting your knees use gravity to feel gravity's effects on your physical being. And just kind of ragdolling, letting go of that tension, just using gravity, super simple. And if you need to yawn or take a deeper breath, that is so encouraged because we often forget that we're holding on to a lot. And when we tap back into movement, we free our bodies to do what they know how to do best. Perform all of those functions, breathing, heart beating, blood pulsing. And notice if your mind has started to wonder about what's happening next, or think about what happened right before we started, or anything else. And every time that happens, just come back to this sensation of body, breath, gravity, gentle movement, and bounce a little bit more. So I should be able to see you moving. You have permission to let your bones jiggle, to let your muscles go slack, to let the air affect your skin. And just start taking some deeper breaths. And keep bouncing. This is actually a Qigong move in Chinese medicine. It's used quite a bit to get the lymph moving. So this is legitimate, you know, like other people do it. You're not crazy. And yeah, let's just start making some noise to get it out of the way. Yeah. Just in case you were still taking yourself seriously. No matter how much of a high-powered New Yorker you are. We're all riding around in the same human suits. We've got the same blood. We've got the same basic anatomy. And that is what is connecting us all right now. And let your heels bounce against the floor. Feel that gravity. Feel that power of the earth rising up to support you. And then stop. Get totally still. And once again, just feeling what's actually here. Notice if it's a little easier now that you just did those 2 minutes of movement to feel. And very gently cracking open your eyes. And we're just going to start tapping. You're going to use both of your hands. I can't because I'm holding a microphone, but pretend that I am. And you're just going to tap underneath your collarbones as hard as you're able to, as hard as like you can stand. Yeah. This amazing system that we're riding around in is very complex and fun and exciting to learn about. This is your lung and your kidney point here. So by tapping it, we're reconnecting our mind and our body so that our brain can communicate with our organ systems and we can be more integrated in everything we do. And then tapping on the center of your chest, your heart, your thymus gland. Our heart, which sends way, way, way more information to our brain than our brain does to our heart. Just connecting to that source of intelligence, waking it up. And then with both hands right under, if you're a lady, right under your boobs. If you're a guy, you can imagine. This is your spleen, liver. This is how we process and digest life. So if you've been taking in a lot of information or if you've had a lot going on, which you have because you're a human in 2017, this is a really good one to do all the time, just to help us process and digest all the information, all the learning, all the evolution, all of the chaos. And then dropping your hands and just standing, feeling your feet planted on the floor. And again, noticing the difference. What it feels like to actually take up residence in your own skin. To actually be here. To actually just be listening to the sound of my voice. To be feeling the sensation of your feet on the ground. And opening your eyes. Does anybody want to say anything about what just happened?
A poetic incantation that feels appropriate in the moment. I feel way more present to answer your question, and I don't come from New York. I come from Asheville, where being heart-centered is more normal, and in New York, when you smile at people, they think there's something wrong with you. So I feel a lot more comfortable in the room now, that everyone's kind of in the same vibration, and I feel called to share this in the moment. So if you can have your eyes closed if you want, and just take a deep breath in and out, and put yourself to a place in nature where you get this feeling just by default. In the silence, I am full of swirling leaves, and they dance upon the winds of breath inside of me. In the sunlight, I am basking, with pink-red warmth painted across my face, reflecting the proof of my existence in the shadow that I make. Within my mind, echo summer bird songs, clear notes which punctuate the clearing in between these listening trees and me. Against my skin, I can still feel the thrumming paper-thin wings of butterflies and bees. I sit on this mountaintop and saturate in these supposed silences, just to give myself and the world a break from the subtle violence it takes to communicate. Laying by an ancient forest or sitting by a lapping lake, away from all this industrialized cacophony we humans make, I know at some point you all have heard it too. Nature's ongoing magnum opus, a symphony composed by synchronicity, if not some even grander divinity that hides somewhere in these quantum folds of mystery. And the harmony that's patterned out by infinity's choir, which expresses itself visually upon the exploding Fibonacci faces of every single flower as each one follows the moon and the sun, because they dictate the hours and the seasons. And when we're out in nature, there's no need to speak of any reasons, because in life, there's really only one: to enjoy another day naked beneath the sun, to birth another son, or to bloom another daughter from our fertile wombs. We are embodied infinite creation. And plants, when we listen, remind us how to adapt to wherever we're stationed, how to go deep below to our roots to weather this coming political winter so that our starts can resurface when we remember that first excitement of spring, or what it feels like when warmth re-enters a frozen heart. I offer you this poem tonight as a hopeful tendril, a tender exhalation for your future inhalation. I hope that it reminds our generation of truth's fragrance and reawakens our sense of what we are. Not outcasts from some garden, but fallen stars. And we're living on the topsoil which has been amended for all of our descendants so that we can build upon the past as we marvel at the present. At nighttime, we gaze up at our astrology ascendant in the dawning of Aquarius. And right now, problems from our Piscean past seem very daunting, but they cannot last, because there is a tried and true solution to this hydra called pollution when we self-actualize and evoke the power of our own evolution. Personal growth and transformation are the only true campaign contributions. And even as we're all working to dispel bureaucracy's illusions, we have to keep forefront in our minds that we, the people, still hold the pen which inked and spelled the Constitution. And the vast majority of us are not racist or evil. We're just scared shitless and lazy. But I meet people every single day, like the people in this room, who continually amaze me. And so from your example, I see proof that I can be that too. And I've witnessed that the power of positivity is what magnetizes these beautiful people to me to start. The fact that I've become vulnerable enough to create and share art, that I've made a conscious choice to put my voice to use and put out a truth and send reminders to the world that we all play this vital part, reflecting light off the many different facets of this human gem. And each shard becomes like a face as we're each given context by our time and our place.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you for putting words to something that is hard to put words to often. I'm wondering if, instead of being so spread out when we sit down, if we're cool with like being cozy, like around a fire here. Can we do that? Yeah. I realized today that I've been very much in my masculine recently, and it's been really fun. And I've gotten a lot of shit done, and a lot of magic has unfolded, and it's been completely expansive and outward. And I've been holding it all together and feeling on top of everything, which, you know, for the world I was raised in means success. So that's always very satisfying. And last night, in the middle of the night, I was awoken by a searing pain. The right side of my head was engulfed in some of the worst pain I felt in quite a long time. It was just an ear infection, but it really, really threw me off. And I didn't sleep, and I spent a lot of the day crying and didn't know if I would be able to come tonight because I was in so much pain. And what it did was take me down off my high horse and my feeling of being in control and on top of everything. And it allowed me to surrender enough to reach out and ask for help and to say, hey, friends, I'm actually not sure if I'm okay. And is that okay? And I reached out to my dear sister, Daniela, who's a genius movement facilitator. And I said, if I need you to tonight, would you step in for me? And she said, yes. And I reached out to Schuyler and to everyone from Assemblage, and I was like, can we make this work? And to do that, to open to receiving help, and then to be met by such wonderful compassion and connection and support made me feel so much more connected and so much better, actually. Now I feel so much more present and in my heart and connected to everyone around me, and therefore more powerful than when I was running around the country all by my lonesome, crushing it. So I also say that to just introduce more authenticity into this space. Like, we spend enough time trying to be all that and trying to nail the interview and get it right. And I'm finding that more and more we find greater power in what's actually real right now in this body, with this breath. And when we share that with each other, that's when we can really create together. So.
Beautiful. Okay. So I made a commitment to authenticity. And I'm feeling the need to name that, to talk about that moment that just happened. Can we? Yeah. Yay. What is your name? Michael. Okay. So how many people were aware that something was happening in the room? Not just the fact that Michael was sharing a very beautiful poem. You wrote that? It's spectacular. And as a writer, I don't dole out compliments about writing very easily. So that was beautiful. But there was something else that happened here. Anyone? Yeah. What did you experience?
As an energy worker.
It was really beautiful, and I'm going to paraphrase it. What is your name? Erica. So Erica's an energy worker, so she's attuned. And she said she was sort of experiencing a pull out of, like, she had been in a flow. And there's a lot of fluctuating energy this evening, maybe for many reasons, but she was pulled, when Michael was saying the poem, that she was kind of pulled out of the flow a little bit. And these abstract notions of masculine and feminine were present but not working together. Yeah, and I think there's a lot we could discuss about Michael's poem, and I think it should be published, and then we'll discuss it. But I want to, what? No. And I can tell you that you feel badly, and I don't want that, because this is, you don't feel badly? How do you feel?
I feel tempted to feel badly, but because I'm committed to being authentic, I just
Perfect. Okay. Beautiful. I got it, and I'm going to talk again because I'm feeling Durga energy. Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny, like sometimes I don't, and this is important because I have done events around the feminine before where people come up to me afterwards and they're like, I don't know if I'm very feminine because I'm like, I get really angry and I'm very fierce, and I'm like, oh, you are feminine. Yeah. So sometimes, and in that moment, I'm gonna admit, I really felt like just like, and it wasn't because I didn't like the poem or you, and I love Asheville. I'm a Southerner too, so I know what you mean. It's a tough city for Southerners, but I was really feeling it. And then David came around, my friend here, the empath, and said, you can stop this if you want. And it was this crazy thing that happened for me. And I really was like, this is so perfect because we can pretend like the dance of the masculine and the feminine is, it doesn't always. And there's like, in that tension, there's so much beauty and richness. And I like lived 10 lives in that moment because I was like ashamed. I'm like, you are supposed to be moderating this event and you want to kill one of the participants. Not really. Not really. I love you. I love you. I want to hug you now. Seeing the truth is so healing. But I just wanted to, because like this is where we are, people, right? We cannot continue to not name these things. Yes. I love you too. You're like Baptist church. Like, amen. So thank you so much. That was perfect. And I know, especially when you invoke the feminine, whatever shows up is perfect. Your offering was perfect. And my experience of it was perfect. And your experience of it and yours. So here we are in our super authentic evening. Can we have a round of applause for authenticity? Okay. All right, so the first thing I'd love to do is is everybody good? If you're not, that's fine too. The first thing I wanted to do is an exercise, a visioning exercise, and now I'm noticing that we've been doing a lot of visioning. So I'm going to keep it very, very brief, but this is probably something you've done before. I've done it before with Daniela. Daniela and I did this type of futuristic visioning work when we worked on some sea level rise, a project on sea level rise in Miami, and this was before the hurricane. And we did this visioning exercise with many, many members of the community in Miami to try to figure out, like, where are we headed? Because we're now at a point, like, we've been doing a lot of talking about the problems on the planet, and how many of you have a very clear vision of where we're headed? A few. That's great. So this is one thing. Danielle is one collaborator in this experience. David is another collaborator in another world. This movement, collective business that David is starting, and I've been fortunate enough to help with a little bit. It's just visioning another world. The world that we know in our hearts is possible. So tonight we'll just do like a 5-minute visioning about what an integrated world looks like. I'm not going to say much more about it before we do it, so we'll just go into it. And and you don't have to close your eyes if you don't want. You can just kind of soft focus in front of you. And I invite you to really use your imagination on this one and enjoy. So we're going to do some time traveling now. So the idea here, and we're really in our bodies already, that's beautiful, is to imagine ourselves 5 years into the future. So think about how old you'll be. Not that it matters. We will have had another election, potentially a new leader. And we're going to imagine that we have begun to achieve a new level of equality and integration of the masculine and the feminine on the planet. So 5 years from now, you wake up in your home. Just take a look around. What does your home look like? Where are you? What do you hear? What kind of day is it? What do you notice about your environment? And maybe check out who's in your home. Who are you waking up with? And imagine you have a big day ahead of you. You're going to work, and you're working in a job or on something, a project, or you're working in a way that really fulfills you. And so after a nice breakfast and whatever your morning routine is, you leave the house and you're on your way to work. Notice how you're getting there. And notice the people around you. In an integrated future, or at least much more integrated than we are now, what do the streets look like? Who's walking? How do they feel? And you make it to work, and notice who greets you. Look around at the faces. And as you're greeted, somebody gives you some big news. Something's happened in the world, and it's good news. Something's been achieved or accomplished, and it feels like a real milestone. And you feel overjoyed to hear this news. And you move through your day and you feel like you're really accomplishing what you need to get done. And you're getting ready to leave work and you have an event in the evening, and it's something that really speaks to your passions, something that you love to do. It could be a hike, picnic, an event like this, a movie, whatever it is. And just invite in the idea of love, sensuality, joy, pleasure. What does that look like in this world? How are people expressing these feelings? And then notice if there's anything else about this world of integration, this integrated culture, that is curious or surprising or interesting to you. Anything you've noticed that feels exciting or surprising. And also any work that feels unfinished. Is there anything that strikes you as important, something we haven't done yet? And if you could just encapsulate the feeling of this integrated culture in one word, as it exists in your body now, what would it be? What is that one word? And as you feel called, you can just open your eyes slowly and turn to a neighbor, and just for 3 minutes or so, you can share with your neighbor anything you care to share, anything you saw or noticed or felt. I've been a futurist for 20 years, and I'm obsessed with the past, actually. In reality, I spend most of my time researching the ancient past, partly because it's really interesting. No. Around the feminine, specifically, we don't know a lot. So I feel like there's a lot to be done to reclaim the past, especially for women or for the feminine generally. We can't really move forward until we know where we came from and what we're carrying. And I'm going to give you there are plenty of places we could go in history to visit the feminine on the planet, and many of them would be unhappy, dark, and hard times. But I feel tonight like we could go for a minute to ancient Crete, Minoan Crete. Anyone been to Crete? Yeah? Oh, wow. Amazing. Wow. Oh, I want to talk to you. I want to go to Crete. So it turns out there's a beautiful book called The Chalice and the Blade. Anyone read that? Yeah. So that book is a woman reclaiming the history of the feminine. And she talks about Crete, which from about 6,000 BC to 3,500 BC was one of the most advanced, peaceful, joyful places on the planet. And they attribute, so in this book, she's brings forward a lot of archaeological evidence. Most of it surfacing in the 80s, the 1980s, because prior to the 1980s, most archaeologists were men. Or at least a lot of the scholarly thought was male dominant. And a lot of the evidence that there was a completely integrated society in Crete was just ignored. Like, they were just sort of ignoring the evidence that the women were in power, and they were ignoring the evidence that men and women lived in really a state of harmony that she says it was the last time in recorded history that there was a spirit of harmony between women and men as joyful and equal participants in life. The fear of death was almost obliterated by the ubiquitous joy of living. They wore really skimpy clothing. This is in the book. I didn't make that up. They were famous for their sports and games, and they did a lot of gymnastics, athletics. There were many public works, drainage, streets. The architecture was very feminine, very beautiful and elegant, and the artworks, the vases, the crafts were incredibly advanced, like more advanced than other places in the ancient world. And Crete, they had the ascendancy of the goddess, so it was still a goddess-based culture for about 1,000 years longer than any other place in the ancient world. So they're not sure how they held on to that, but it seems to be a big part of the reason that this culture of joy and harmony prevailed. And I just want to read one quote. This struck me. I come back to this again and again. But the Cretans had the Cretans' more natural attitudes towards sex would also have had other consequences equally difficult for us to perceive under the prevailing paradigm, wherein religious dogma often views sex as more sinful than violence. The Cretans seem to have reduced and diverted their aggressiveness through a free and well-balanced sexual life. These liberated attitudes towards sex seem to have contributed to the generally peaceful and harmonious culture. So, yeah, it's good news. And also really suggests to me, so I bring up that example because sometimes I think, how are we going to do this? Like, is it even realistic? Is it even possible? And it is indeed possible. I mean, we carry the blueprint for harmony and equality in our DNA. We have lived it. We have walked. You have walked there. And there have been other times in history, though not many in the last couple thousand years. But if we're going to survive on the planet, we're going to have to get back there. And it sounds great. So let's do it. So I'm going to end my section of the evening here tonight with a little practical application, because what I know now, I've been sort of exploring the feminine actively for 10 years. Kind of about 10 years ago, I understood that it was something to be explored. You know, I mean, there's that. I thought, well, I'm a woman, so I understand the feminine. Until I ran into some teachers who showed me that I knew nothing about the feminine, in fact. I had been taught nothing about the feminine. I also had a baby, so I gave birth, which taught me a lot about how little I know about the feminine. Becoming a mother, very humbling experience related to the feminine. And now I feel like it's an imperative. It's like my work every day in the world. So I'm going to offer 3 things that I do, and then invite you to think of 3 things you could do, man, woman, not identifying as either or both. 3 things you could do to invoke, and you're probably already doing them. I mean, the people in this room are probably doing many of them, the feminine more regularly. Because as much as I talk about this and work on the feminine, I lose it. I lose my grip on it all the time. I don't even know if I have my grip on it right now. But the 3 things that I do, number one is play. Anyone? I made this my number 1 tonight because it's the one I forget to do most often. And I have a 7-year-old, and she helps me play all the time. But I notice, especially when I'm working, especially when I get to a computer, that I stop feeling playful. Anyone have that experience? So I write emails, I'm getting things done, or I'm on my phone, and I get really serious. And I worked in the corporate world for 15 years, and I was like programmed into a masculine mindset. So I have to have people around me, let's say, who call me out constantly when I'm just like ticking things off the list and getting things done. So the thing, like just that word play, and then having people I work with and live with who will help me play is really important. And I see it on the faces of women all the time, especially as they're working, just this seriousness and tension. So play is something that I try to, it's not easy. Second one is beauty. I thought that's where you were going when you were talking about the space earlier, that the space, like just beauty. I know that my feminine is alive and well when I'm walking down the street and I'm noticing nature, and I'm noticing flowers, and I'm noticing plants. And I know she's, I don't know where she is, but she's not there when I'm like racing around and not noticing beauty or not keeping myself beautiful. And I don't mean in any kind of like culturally sanctioned way, but in a way that makes me feel very beautiful, wearing things that make me feel beautiful. And this is a whole nother topic of discussion for another night, but beauty itself has been villainized, co-opted by the corporate world, by advertising, et cetera, and we gotta take that back. But beauty is another one. And the third for me is spaciousness. Just slowing down, another difficult one in the city of New York. But creating space. And space is really scary, I find, right? there was a moment at the beginning here when Natasha got quiet for a while, and I was like, "Ugh." Spaces can be scary, but we have to give space because the feminine comes through in the space. So we can't really receive her if we're pushing all the time. So as long as we're doing, we can't be. So just being. Those are my practices around the feminine. So I'll just leave you with one funny piece of homework. This is fun. Somebody sent this to me today. Did anybody see the Tucker Carlson? Maybe it just came across my social media, but there was a screenshot of, I think he's on Fox actually, but it said, Tucker Carlson had a witch on his show. It didn't go as planned. And the pictures of this, like, you know, anchory kind of guy, and then this beautiful woman. And so it's really worth watching because she comports herself so beautifully. And he's so silly. But it felt to me like a really good tiny snapshot of where we are right now with the feminine and the masculine in some ways. But that, and reclaiming history. So that a witch was on a national news. I don't know if we have national news. It sounds very like 1960s. A big news program, a witch. And she knew what she was talking about, and it was beautiful. And he didn't know what to do with her. And it was really, really cool. It's really fun to watch. So it just feels like we're making some progress, even reclaiming witchiness, which somebody defined for me as a witch is nothing more than a woman who's in touch with her sensuality. I like that. So, yeah, witches. So go watch the Tucker Carlson clip. It's really, really funny and sweet and a really good sign that we're kind of moving in the right direction. And thank you so much.
So my sister here, our sister Tasha, she went home to take care of herself. So stepping in here, and we'll spend a few minutes together in a little movement to integrate some of what we have been talking about. And I'd like to speak to briefly just the 5 rhythms. Raise your hand if you know what the 5 rhythms are, if you've ever done 5 rhythms. Awesome. Yeah, a lot of you. Okay, 5 rhythms is a movement meditation practice, and it's a map of transformation. And because we're using the words feminine and masculine and chaos a lot here, 5 rhythms has taught me more than any other practice in the world about these qualities, these patterns of energy, and actually enabled me to survive growing up in this city. And Gabrielle Roth, the creator of 5 Rhythms, she says actually 5 Rhythms, or New York City is a chaos city, and the time we're entering into collectively is also the chaos. And it is the combination of the feminine and masculine. So the feminine is fluid, it's the in-breath, it's receptive, it's our relationship to the earth, it's continuous motion. It's like a mother to a child, it's our relationship to ourself. And the masculine is more, it's an exhale, it's more direct, clear, linear, action-oriented. Hello, nice to meet you. Good job. Yes. You got this. And then chaos is a 3rd rhythm, and it's the combination of the masculine and the feminine. It's the and that's where we're at now. It's the, oh my God, I don't fucking know. Oh, chaos, feminine, masculine. Shoo, whoa. And it transitions into this 4th rhythm, this lyrical, shoo, this lightness where we can see the bigger picture. We can see our relationship to society, creativity, innovation, opportunity emerge. And we move into a stillness. Shoo. compassion, true presence, and integration of everything, of oneness, of the totality, of all of it, beyond definitions. So I wanted to bring in Gabrielle and the 5 rhythms just here for a moment now, because it helps me remember that we're moving forward, we're moving through, that the chaos shifts and transforms, and we're moving into a lightness and a lyrical. We are doing that work now, so yay. So let us stand up and exhale. Just bending your knees and allowing a little sway, just an easy, gentle sway. You feel your feet on the ground. This feminine, this flowing, sensing your in-breath. And opening your eyes if they're not already open. I invite you to just find a point in the room, a focus, and just point your gaze there and maybe direct some energy. Try just making some angles. Find the lines, edges, angles in the room. A little more clarity of the masculine. And then letting that go and just shake out your head, shake out your arms, shake out everything. Blah, getting that silly, getting that goof, getting that silly, blah, 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 blah. Shake it a little more. Shake it, just let it out. Sensing the lighter feeling that's here. Just waking up your fingertips. Beginning to notice, say hello across the room, spreading your awareness, your attention out, saying hi with your fingers. Hello, fingers. Hello. Yeah, nice. And then finding yourself into just a place of stillness, a shape of integration, as if your body were a piece of clay or a sculpture in a museum. Finding a place of integration, perhaps calling on that vision of the future. What does an integrated self of balance look like for you? Finding that shape with your body. And together, on the count of 3, we're going to create one last shape, because we can talk about all these things, but without actually embodying them, it's abstract and it's useless. And when we embody our intention or the contents in our mind, we make it real and tangible and felt. So we'll together, on the count of 3, create one shape of this future that we're all stepping into, this integrated shape of the future. All right? Don't think about it. Integrated shape on the count of future. On the count of future. Dun, 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 the count of future. 1, 2, 3. Future! Ow! Take a look around the room. Take a look at all these shapes, at all these visions, at all these lives, at this integration, at this beautiful space we get to inhabit and live in and breathe in. Yay. May we continue to embody this integration and live it and breathe it and love it. I love you. Love you so much. Erin, here, let it go.